Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Yuwat. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. At least 5 people, including a child, die while attempting to cross the English Channel from France just hours after Britain passes a bill to deport migrants to Rwanda. The Basketball Africa League continues in Cairo. We'll have highlights of the latest exciting action. And in our health report, we'll look at the critical role played by non-governmental organizations in reaching low and middle-income communities for medical care services. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin with tragedy on the waters of the English Channel Tuesday. At least 5 people are dead, including a child, following an attempt to cross the Channel from France. The deaths came just hours after Britain passed a bill to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda to try to deter the dangerous crossings. The deaths of a child, a woman, and 3 men occurred on an overcrowded small boat carrying around 110 people attempting to cross one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. The French Coast Guard was still searching for survivors. Neither the Coast Guard or police could say how many people had been rescued or could be missing. A British Border Force boat carrying more than 20 migrants in life jackets was seen off the coast in Dover, southern England, about 32 kilometers from France. The deadly attempt to cross the English Channel came after Britain's parliament passed legislation that will allow the government to send asylum seekers to Rwanda rather than stay in Britain for processing. The plan, which was agreed in April 2022 by then Prime Minister Boris Johnson, sends anyone who arrived in Britain illegally after January 1, 2022 to Rwanda, more than 6,000 kilometers away from Britain. Here's what several Rwandans had to say about the new legislation.
My name is Serine Arnanje, and in my view, I think the UK-Rwandan asylum agreement should go on. People deserve to be where they are safe. Staying in a country illegally is not good for anyone. They can have a home here in Kigali, and it is a safe place for everyone. They can still make it. And legal citizens over here, they can have access to help and other public things as any other Rwandan. Thank you.
UK-Rwanda asylum is good to me because when it is beneficial to my country, it's also beneficial to me. And to those who are saying that Rwanda is not good with the human right, I don't know where they get it, because this country is the best country where everyone is free, whether you are a Rwandan citizen or you are a visitor or you are a migrant, you are well treated with our government. So I don't know how they get that it is not good with the human right. And I don't know why they asked someone who is not with our country. So for me, I think that it should be go ahead and I will be right with it.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has been pushing for this legislation requiring judges to consider Rwanda a safe third country. The government is planning to deport thousands of migrants who have arrived in the country in recent years, many of whom fled wars and poverty in Africa, the Middle East and Asia. Deportation flights are likely to begin in July. For more insight, VOA's Paul Ndiho spoke via Skype to Yasmin Ahmed, the UK director at Human Rights Watch.
Essentially, the bill that's now passed through Parliament means that the UK government has, in one stroke, effectively undermined the rule of law in the United Kingdom and acted in breach of its own international obligations with respect to refugees and asylum seekers. The Supreme Court in the UK made very clear that Rwanda is not a safe country to send asylum seekers to. The UK government have then attempted to legislate away what the court has said, which you're unable to do. The court has made a clear finding. and to try and say that in any event, we're going to ignore what the court says, and we're going to ignore our international obligations, which is to ensure that you do not send anyone to another country when there is a risk of mistreatment, including the possibility that they may be returned to the country that they are fleeing. So this is a very, very concerning development, because it evidences that this government is willing to set aside and, in fact, just ignore the rule of law in the United Kingdom and also the international obligations to protect refugees and asylum seekers.
Human Rights Watch has come out, condemned this. Other organizations have also done the same. What does this mean going forward?
Human Rights Watch has been documenting violations of human rights, very serious violations of human rights in Rwanda for decades. The UK court has made very clear that Rwanda is not a safe country. So the UK government, by going forward with this deal, by passing this legislation, is acting in breach of its international obligations and is undermining the very idea of responsibility sharing, and also undermining its ability to act on the international stage to promote the rules-based order.
Is this something that can be challenged through the legal systems, either in Europe or in the UK?
What will happen now is that the government is likely to issue and enforce removal notices against certain individuals. Those individuals will have a very, very limited right of appeal in relation to specific characteristics that they may hold. What the UK government has done is prevented and told the UK courts that they are not allowed to find Rwanda an unsafe country per se, but they've allowed individual asylum seekers to make specific claims in relation to individual characteristics that they may hold. The
British Prime Minister, Mr. Rishi Sunak, has contended that this is to deter people from coming into the United Kingdom. But when you look across the globe, you see immigrants who are facing all sorts of challenges trying to flee those countries. Could this measure deter anybody from trying to get into the United Kingdom?
We know that they're ineffective. We know that people will continue to seek safety because they are in danger. And so what it ends up doing is, rather than deterring people, let's be clear, this is not a deterrent. What this does is just make it a lot more dangerous for people who will come, because they are in fact at risk of their life.
That was Yasmin Ahmed, UK Director at Human Rights Watch, speaking to VOA's Paul Ndiho. Our effort to get a comment from a Rwandan government official were not successful. Togolese lawmakers have approved constitutional changes likely to extend the 19-year rule of President Faure Gnassingbé. The move triggered protests called by the opposition and civil society groups. The opposition coalition says the changes to the constitution are political and could allow Gnassingbé to stay in power until 2033 if he is re-elected in 2025. For more perspective, I'm joined live from Dakar, Senegal by Ibrahima Khan, a West African political analyst. Mr. Khan, what are the likely implications for Togo after lawmakers approved the changes without involving its citizens?
Well, it will be another big shift. You know, the president will continue to remain in power because what we are going to see is the president being the head of the government. And at the head of the government, he will stay 6 years without being able to be removed from his position and will continue to run the country. This country since 1967 by the same family. And they are doing everything to continue to run the country without any possibility for other citizens to be able to take the destiny of their country. So this is a really, really very important problem for not only the democracy in Togo, democracy in West Africa, but also a big challenge to ECOWAS as an institution, because all the norms that the community has put in place have been violated by the government, and ECOWAS is just silent.
Ibrahima, we've also seen that the Togolese people have vowed to reject that move through, protests on the streets. Can this possibly stop the approved constitutional changes from being enacted?
Well, I think it's quite difficult. First, in the past, when the population came out to show their opposition to any law or any decision taken by the government, it ended up with, a lot of killings, with a lot of people arrested and locked up in prison. And this time, people have decided not to take that route. They want to use all the other possibilities that exist for them to make the protest. ECOWAS has sent a team, but the team has just met with few people and with government authorities. And since then, nothing has come out from ECOWAS, even in terms of a communique saying what are the conclusions of the meeting.
You mentioned ECOWAS, which is the regional bloc there. Do you think they should be concerned, they should intervene at this point in time so that Togo doesn't get to the same road, the same path that Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali and other countries have taken with the coups?
Yes, Madam. These issues in Togo and generally problems that are happening in West Africa are really challenging ECOWAS as an institution. ECOWAS as a regional community that is really in charge of the problem of the region. In Togo, people are dying. In Togo, the government is changing legislation even without the knowledge of the people, and ECOWAS is just silent. So I think the credibility of the regional institution is at stake at this time, and something needs to be done.
Mr. Khan, thank you. We'll have to revisit that another day. Brahima Khan is a West African political analyst. Now, marijuana is a rare consensus issue in politically divided America, with polls showing that 88% of Americans support at least partially legalizing the drug. But cannabis advocates say neither of the leading presidential candidates are capitalizing on shifting attitudes. VOA correspondent Scott Stearns has our story.
Nearly 3/4 of Americans live in states where marijuana is legal for medicinal purposes. Half the population live where it's also allowed recreationally. But cannabis remains entirely illegal under federal law, where it's classified alongside heroin and LSD as drugs with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. The overwhelming majority of American voters who think that should be changed makes cannabis a ripe opportunity for presidential candidates Joe Biden and Donald Trump, especially among young voters, according to Scotty Smart, who's a community organizer with the civic engagement group, the New Georgia Project.
A lot of people don't understand policy. A lot of people don't know how policies affect their day-to-day lives. I think cannabis is an issue that ignites and excites young people to pay attention.
At the National Cannabis Festival and Washington Policy Summit earlier this month, founder Caroline Phillips said neither Biden nor Trump have delivered.
For both of them, one thing they have in common is that their track records on cannabis have been inconsistent and incremental. We've heard promises from both administrations, neither of which have panned out in full.
Under Biden, the Department of Health and Human Services recommended changing marijuana to a lighter drug classification, rescheduling it instead of making it legal, which would be descheduling.
The current White House's policy on marijuana remains slightly unclear. They have given us great signals that they're willing to shift towards descheduling, but most likely rescheduling. However, we haven't quite seen the action to back up their words.
In 2018, then President Trump said he would, quote, probably support efforts to end federal prohibitions on marijuana and leave its legality up to the states. That legislation never got out of Congress. Trump told a Newsmax TV interviewer last year that studies show marijuana, quote, does significant damage, and yet, from a voting standpoint, it's a pretty popular thing.
Trump's track record on cannabis has been inconsistent at best. We've heard him both say that people who sell drugs in the illicit market should be jailed and even put to death, I think with some of the scarier rhetoric around that. But we've also seen him pardon people who've been locked up for cannabis.
U.S. voters' shifting attitudes about marijuana show in Gallup polling, where last year 70% of adults supported legalization. That's more than double the number who said they favored legalization in 2000. Morgan Fox is political director for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
This is an issue that is increasingly important to voters, particularly young voters, and any candidate that actually wants to get ahead, whether it's in the presidential election, in Congress, or state legislatures or local legislators, if they ignore this issue, it's going to be at their peril.
Younger voters animated by legalizing marijuana are hoping for Biden administration action on cannabis before the November election. Scott Stearns, VOA News.
Still to come, we'll have the latest Basketball African League highlights. Stay with us.
This week on Straight Talk Africa, the International Monetary Fund says economic recovery is slow and incomes in sub-Saharan Africa fell further behind the rest of the world. How does this affect the life of citizens in Africa? Join me, Vincent McCory, and my guests for an in-depth discussion on sub-Saharan economics on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Season 4, rocking with the best. Rocking with the best. Season 4, rocking with the best.
In other news, attacks around the Sudanese city of Al Fashir have shattered a truce, leading to warnings of a new wave of intercommunal violence and humanitarian risks for 1.6 million residents. Al Fashir is the last major city in the vast western Darfur region not under control of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. In an art show at Morocco's Mohammed VI Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art is one of the first exhibitions of a Cuban art at an African museum. When Morocco's King Mohammed VI visited Havana in 2017, Cuban-American gallery owner Alberto Magnan impressed him with a full immersion in the Caribbean islands' art and culture. Now to the Basketball Africa highlights. The action continued at the Hassan Mustafa Indoor Sports Complex in Cairo, Egypt on Monday during the Nile Conference of Season 4 of the Basketball African League. In the first game, Libya's Al Ahly got their second win this round, beating Uganda's City Oilers 79-68. Here's a look at that matchup.
You know, ability to perform so well. As we get this tip-off going, the City Oilers are the team that have the ball in hand with this man, Patrick Rambert. They lost 101-88, as we see a little swivel there from Dane Miller Jr. as he tries to go and find a little bit of space and time. And the points go up. First points go for the Oilers. To find the points, it's 4-2 for the City Oilers. Good, strong start for them with Murphy just trying to find a little bit of space in the paint. Nice little ghosts in down towards the baseline and up and over and in. You know, you leave him out and deal with it, and then have him recover for the next game. Nice score, nicely done from Joe Lual-Achuel. Ducking and diving, waits for that pass, gets it into the paint. We know where it's going. Achuel tries to. Oh, he does really well, but picked up by Dreleba. Dreleba down into the corners, picked up by that man, Opong, and through the middle, Dane Miller Jr. unable to do anything with that. He kind of just forgot the ball. Al Maghrebi layup for two.
Goes out of bounds, and it still is Oilers basketball.
Well, here we go. This is Achuel. He's going home alone. You will not stop the man producing a monster dunk like that. Achuel. His teammates and the players were just very elated after he put it in. That's the perfect way. A very swift and sharp response there coming from the big man. Hey, look, it's a 16-point lead. We haven't seen that for quite a while. So let's hope that they can, come back. And it's Diabate. Oh, the pass. That's stunning into Achuel.
They just upped the intensity ante, and they were going to try build on that for the final 10.
Diabate into the paint, tries to drop one over the top. He does it again. That is just masterful. Diabate. There we go. And that should be it. 68 points to 79.
And Egypt's Al Ahly won 85-79 against the Central African Republic's Bangui Sporting Club. Let's check out some of that game's highlights.
Time for tip-off.
James is the man there. He's just all over it. Love it. Here we go. Let's rock and roll. Let's get down to business. And it already is Ali who pick up possession from the tip-off. Dalan. Brazil back in possession. Here he is, the Nigerian, just ducking and diving, goes around back, and there's a great score. Oh my word, the 3 points go in the bag. Dalan picks it up, looks for options, shot clock down to 7, need to make a move. Oh, that is just top quality from Dalan, over the top and in. Gets the ball into the hands of Eamon. Eamon starts again. And the shot clock down to 5. Got to go for the big long-range bucket! Amen! Here's Prince Ali. Prince Ali going for a big long-range bucket. That is how to do it. The Prince is a king here in Cairo.
King of shot making under pressure.
Look at this, it's all happening. That's a good score as well. Leg side up, dropping in for 2. But they've now tasted that lead. Oh, you've given the ball away, you just can't do that. That is a big mistake. And Lions gets the 2 points. You've got to play the game intelligently. It's difficult in these situations, but you've got to play intelligently. Lions goes through and gets the ball out wide. Prince Ali. Oh, Ali. 12.6 remaining. Brazil goes for the big 3. Rebound's been taken. Good 2 points there for that man, Willie Fuller. 3.6 seconds remaining, long-range three-pointer. Oh, it doesn't fall there for Thierry Dalan. The last shot of this encounter. Alali make it 3 out of 3 here in Cairo.
We'll bring you more highlights from the games this week as the Nile Conference continues. Stay tuned. It's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther. The World Health Organization has approved a new, simpler version of an existing oral cholera vaccine. The Uvicol S vaccine is a simplified formulation of Uvicol Plus. The simplified formula is expected to enable a rapid increase in production and supply. The drug is produced by the South Korean firm Ubiologics.
We have seen all along that to have an lasting impact, you need to be working through local organizations and local community structures, right? The local faith-based organizations are the ones that have the trust of the communities and can best represent them in finding solutions that are going to be lasting and work. They also become very important advocates within their government systems at the local, regional, and national levels to ensure that the governments are putting resources toward this important problem of health. You know, the reality is governments are losing enormous shares of their potential GDP or income by having unhealthy populations. And they need to be investing, particularly in the youth and the women in their countries, to ensure that they are as productive as they can be and be successful in the international markets.
What does it look like when it comes to implementing your models and services on the ground?
Traditionally, in the past, it was that there were big donors like USAID or the UN or other European donors, and they needed implementing agents, and they would come to international nonprofits like Chorus International to execute and implement our programs, and we would go and connect with local partners to do the grassroots, on the ground delivery of services at the local level. What we're seeing now, though, is that more of the role for the international NGOs is to help build the capacity and to support the local NGOs for them to take much of a more of a lead role in this. The area that we're finding most work still needs to be done and where there's value added from organizations like Chorus International is kind of the systems that need to support and help in this process, as well as the issues related to monitoring and evaluation, finance, compliance, all these big issues required by big donors that require lots of reporting, lots of data, lots of technical aspects to this. The good news is that what's happened over the last several decades is the intellectual capital in African countries has grown tremendously, right? You don't need doctors from international NGOs anymore, except in perhaps humanitarian situations of urgent conflict or crises where you just need a surge. You have the technical expertise, you have the medical expertise, you have the health expertise, but the systems around all those people aren't yet built enough and strong enough to deliver services throughout and to reach the unreachable or the most vulnerable populations. So what's happening is there's a big change and dynamic happening now, where on the service delivery side, African organizations like these faith-based organizations are stepping forward, taking that role, and now international nonprofits and donors are moving to a secondary role, trying to manage and ensure that the resources are used well, documented, and ensured that they went for what they were supposed to go for, and the results and the impact are proving the success of the design of those projects.
How do you measure impact?
Well, for us, impact at the end of the day is the outcomes that we see in the populations that we're trying to support and serve, right? So you measure it through number of diseases, the mortality rate of infants, the mortality of mothers giving birth, the number of cases of malaria, the delivery of pharmaceuticals, the number of vaccines being provided, and the impact that's having on reducing disease. But even more important, and it's a little harder to measure, is that capacity building piece that we were talking about. So what we watch in that particular context is to see when and how our local non-government organizations, as well as local governments, ready to step up and be direct recipients of international assistance and be able to deliver those with similar results that the nonprofits produced, right? And that's not always a given, right? Because as I'm sure you know, in many government contexts, including in developed countries, the government resources don't have the same impact as when a local community-based organization delivers it, because their overheads are much less and they're able to manage much more closely and directly. So we're watching that piece as well. But there's lots of measures in here. But at the end of the day, you know, for us, let's focus on getting universal health coverage across Africa, that everybody has the ability to access healthcare, and that we're no longer losing children on preventable diseases and that they're dying before the age of 5, or mothers are dying in childbirth for no reason, or simple diseases that can be solved through vaccines are no longer becoming epidemic across particular areas or regions or communities or countries, because we were able to get the vaccines there and the medicines to help on recovery.
In the global healthcare landscape, non-governmental organizations play an important role in reaching communities worldwide with medical care, particularly in low and middle income countries, but their work and impact are not without challenges. That was Ambassador Daniel Speckhard, President and CEO of Chorus International. That's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on X at Lenore Moudou. Esther?
Thanks, Lenore. Be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's Health Report every Tuesday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.